This is NFA Talk, the show that talks about guns and gun rights, keeping you up to date with what's currently going on, from the newest guns, promotions, and events, plus how we're lobbying for your rights.
Hey guys, we're back with another episode of NFA Talk. I'm Jordan Vandenhoff. I'm joined with Sheldon Clare and Charles Zach. This is episode number 3 of season 2. We got some exciting news. Well, not so exciting. We got some news about what's going to be happening tomorrow. I guess they're bringing out more gun control. They're bringing out more legislation. It's never a good thing. So I don't know who wants to start tonight.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on. I spoke with the policy advisor in the Leader of the Opposition, Aaron O'Toole's office this morning about this. They're interested in speaking to us. We have a meeting scheduled with them to go over our recommendations on Wednesday. And basically what the sense is that this is primarily going to be them getting authorization to spend money on this. This is a money bill. It's got a fair bit of cost associated with it, especially if they try to do their legislated theft program, or as they're terming it, a buyback. Then that is going to take approval of the expense to do this. And I'm very curious to see what they think it's going to cost, because I think that's where we're going to have a lot of fun, because estimates of what this will cost in terms of trying to buy back people's stuff is considerably more than the millions of dollars that were spent in places like Australia or New Zealand to do this kind of operation. I think we're looking at billions of dollars to try to make this fly. And I think that this is not going to be welcomed by Canadians. It's going to be actively resisted. And it already is being actively resisted right from the get-go. So what we're expecting mainly tomorrow is that there will be discussion about the cost of this, and then we'll see a bunch of reiteration of the things that they already said they intended to do in the Order in Council that is being challenged in the courts and heading towards the federal court soon as we move forward in the fight against this nonsense. So like I said, Charles, Jordan, and myself will be meeting with the Leader of the Opposition's policy advisor about this week, and we will be making sure we have a thorough analysis to present to them and to let you know about all of this as we move forward. Charles, what else are you hearing about this?
Well, I've been trying to get a copy of the legislation. Of course, they're keeping this very close to the vest, and this is very typical now. I think the critic may have a copy of this, but they can't release this because of parliamentary privilege at this point in time. But sometimes these things are leaked out to the media. I've been trying to get a copy from there as well too. No dice yet. That may materialize early tomorrow morning. I don't know. I'm not being that much hopeful right now, but it's interesting how closely they're trying to keep this guarded, and which kind of worries me in a way, right? And Sheldon, you're right about the whole costing thing. I mean, they have to introduce legislation to actually get that rolling, and I think that will be the primary thing. But I think it's all the other things that they're going to try to slide in here, right? And we can talk about that as well too. That worries us and should worry everybody else out there as well too.
Well, I think one of the big ones that they've been talking about and floating balloons about is central storage. And that's something that I think we're going to need to be very, very worried about and cautious about. There have been trial balloons being floated out the last few months about possibilities to see what reaction is to them. And I mean, none of this has got anything to do with crime control, right, guys? I mean, this has always been about civil disarmament. It's never been about anything else. Putting a piece of paper beside either me or Jordan or Charles has nothing to do with whether we make a bad decision tomorrow. Putting a piece of paper beside a pistol has no bearing on whether that thing is going to get used in crime. None of this has anything to do with stopping criminal activity. What do you think, Jordan?
Well, there's also a lot of speculation on something to do with handguns tomorrow as well. whether if they're going to go for a full handgun ban or if they're going to go for a provincial level handgun ban. So I'm really interested to see which route they're going to go. Like I'll be stuck to the screen tomorrow watching the whole thing. Unfortunately, I hate listening to Bill Blair talk, but I'll have to sit through it and listen and see what he comes up with. And like you said, Sheldon, this has nothing to do with public safety, because public safety, they'd be coming up with programs in order to catch these criminals coming into Canada with these smuggled firearms. Once in a blue moon, they get lucky, they catch somebody, they put it on the news, and they make it, they make a big scene about it. And the odd time, down in the downtown cities, they'll catch somebody and then they make a big production of it. But when it comes time for the control part, they keep saying that no, these guns are sourced in Canada, and they flip the narrative and they keep saying that no, these are legally acquired guns that somehow get moved into the illegal market, and we are the problem, which is clearly not true. There's no evidence that we are the problem.
Well, that's right. And it's been clear from the get-go that none of these gun control initiatives in other countries have had any effect whatsoever on the homicide rates or the suicide rates or anything else. That it doesn't make a difference. This is only about getting the guns. And it's about getting the guns at a time when the world is going through a lot of issues. We've got this pandemic going on. We've got all of this economic downturn that's going to be a result of some of these expenses. And all of this is putting a lot of pressure on government, and they're becoming more and more afraid of free-thinking people. I think that's really what this is in a big way about. Charles?
Absolutely.
No doubt about that. Actually, I just want to say something for Jordan there. For the people who do want to watch it live tomorrow, that will be on Parle View. You can Google that. We've also thrown up the link in various places as well, too. You can check that out. 10 o'clock, it'll go live. There'll be a live stream, so check that out. The more people on there, the better. Another thing that I think they may be throwing out there as well, too, is an expansion of the red flag laws that we have. Now, for people who don't understand what that is, it's basically...
a law that's already in place.
Yeah, a lot of that's already in place, but they do want to expand this, right? And the whole idea is to make it even more difficult for firearms owners out there. Make it more treacherous or perilous, if you want to put it that way, because these rat lines, as you want to call them, right, are they can be done anonymously. I've been talking with a couple of people, and typical situation is a domestic dispute situation where somebody calls in somebody, there's no names given, but the full weight of the law comes onto the firearms owner, and it comes from an anonymous source, and it goes through the whole machinations of basically breaking in, taking the guns, confiscating them, getting charged with some trumped up charges, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of an easier way to confiscate guns, and I think that's what they're going to try to put down.
Well, absolutely. This is about getting the guns. And they keep talking about 1,500 specific firearms. Well, along with variants and the addition of the 11,000 joules and the larger bore diameter stipulations, this is thousands more firearms than just 1,500. And so it may well represent something close to 10,000 different specific types of firearm. And I mean, even a caliber change could be considered to be a variant. So if you have a rifle that's on a particular chassis, that's say a heavy African caliber that meets the 11,000 joules, and it includes variants of that particular firearm, that means that potentially calibers that are much less than that 11,000 joules would be included because the firearm itself is deemed to be prohibited. I mean, I went through prohibited firearms a few years ago with somebody named Kim Campbell, and she very much...
Oh, I guess it's time for show and tell.
caused us a problem with our stuff, and things like this have been sitting in my safe ever since. And
so Sheldon, for the people that are listening in, what are you holding up there?
What I was showing was an Auto Ordnance Thompson 1927 A1, modified with a 28 barrel and with a horizontal grip instead of the vertical pistol grip that it also came with. This was the first firearm I ever bought.
and it's a beautiful condition.
Oh, it is in beautiful condition, and it used to get taken out all the time. I never had to buy a truck until I was well into my 20s because I never had any trouble finding a ride to the range.
Well, I guess it's my turn, and let's show something that's been recently prohibited.
Exactly.
Right? Which is my old. And let me lock it safe there. I can see where it is. There we go. It's all nice and open. That's my AR-15 that's been collecting dust in my vault. Hopefully that we can take this out again one day and use it, in a peaceful, recreational manner, the way we've always done. We're not out there. We're not the criminals that they paint us to be. And, the gun has nothing to do with it anyway. So,
well, I enjoyed shooting your AR when I was at Silverdale last time, Charles. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Charles, maybe show them the whole setup. You could just kind of, just for people watching. That looks like a kind of a short barrel.
I do have a light and a laser on it as well.
You're all set up.
There we go. I don't have a lot of bells and whistles on there, nor do I want it, but I mean, that's a nice little setup.
It is. It's good. The Thompson, of course, comes with the wonderful and world famous cuts compensator.
Yes.
And all of the other fine features that made these such popular devices through the roaring 20s and 30s and ever after, for every kid that ever watched a Dillinger movie or any of those things, which is arguably why they've been claimed to be problems, right? But it's not really about Dillinger or anything like that. It's really about they don't want someone like me taking this to the range and going bang, 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 bang. And which it goes back to the magazine's stupid restrictions, because you having to butcher all the magazines for this to hold only 5 shots was also a royal expensive pain in the butt. But I wanted to just highlight the fact that this order and counsel stuff's been done before. This is not new. Kim Campbell did this to us as well back in '92 with her C-17 legislation. Yes. So this is definitely a thing. And our approach at this at the case that we're doing, Parker versus Canada, that we're funding, is one of making sure we have a good, solid, compelling client who can tell her story in such a way that it meets with the court's sympathy.
Sheldon, you talked about the magazines, and there's rumors that may be another thing they're going to slide in tomorrow. Yeah, I remember talking to Bill in Ottawa, and actually we had quite a lengthy discussion on the magazines. He said, goes, they're a real problem. I said, well, how so? Goes, well, you can just pop out a rivet, and all of a sudden it's it is regular capacity. And I'm going, so? Because that, first of all, that's illegal, and it's got nothing to do with, crime. I'm not out there, even if I had a full capacity magazine, I'm just out in the range doing my thing. It's got nothing to do with, being a criminal per se. Because, well, you could inflict more damage with a standard magazine as opposed to, one that's pinned to 5 or to 10 or whatever it is, right? But I told them that we've gone through exercises on the range with the pin magazines, and we actually timed ourselves to see how quickly we could actually shoot and dump our mags. And with a little bit of practice, you can actually get quite fast. So this is just more nonsense.
It's right? All irrelevant.
It is.
And I mean, we've been pretty fortunate with the Conservatives speaking to us and giving us reasonably strong support for our issues. But I'll tell you, if anyone thinks they're going to take anybody's guns and put them in central storage and have to sign them out and then one day say, no, you can't have them anymore, that's not going to fly. If they think they're going to ban all handguns in Canada, well, Paul Martin tried that once already. It didn't go so well for him in the federal election that followed that statement. And I can assure you that this attempt to distract from the other failings and ineptitude of this Liberal government is simply not going to go over very well. We've seen scandal after scandal.
It really seems like they're rushing this bill, and I think it's really to deflect from the COVID-19 vaccination rollout, right?
failure of it.
I mean, it wasn't just too long ago where IBM was awarded the contract, and now all of a sudden we've got legislation on the table. The timeline's way too quick. Trudeau knows he's failing. It's I don't know if we're going to see an election anytime soon, because if we go to the polls now with Trudeau failing, he's not going to do fairly. He's not going to do well. So they're gonna push this gun control. Hope to get the people all happy and giddy for Trudeau, and maybe deflect from the COVID release.
That could be, but this legislation has been pending since the OIC came out, because it's enabling legislation to make their promises be paid for. I noticed one of the comments, someone was talking about 3D printers. Every United Nations meeting I've gone to in the last 4 years, I think, 3D printers has come up as something that is viewed by the gun grabbers of the world as a significant problem. And I mean, some of us are pointing out that there are people in mud huts in Pakistan making AK-47s out of simple parts with hand tools. And really, you're worried about 3D printers? Ha ha ha. So this is a thing that's definitely on their radar as well.
Yeah,
so
I just want to jump in too, Sheldon. I just want to respond to what Jordan had to say about the timing of things. And, you are absolutely correct. I mean, we know that IBM was contracted. I personally been trying to get a hold of IBM Canada, the presidents, everything else. They've gone dark and they're ignoring everything, and that's fine.
Well, you were in a meeting with IBM the other day, though, weren't you?
I was there, yes, and I did send message to Claude Gay. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but it was a different seminar. But I just want to make sure that he knew that I was still following him. I sent him a message saying, I'm disappointed with IBM Canada getting involved with and collaborating with such government overreach, and you still have time to do the right thing, and that means canceling the contract. Well, obviously hasn't done that. I mean, the first phase of the requirement, which I think it was the first week of February, which was last week, was to have something sort of a general view of things for the government. So this makes sense now that they're coming out to roll this out tomorrow, right? And once again, Jordan, I think you're absolutely right about the timing of things. I mean, if they're talking about having a spring election, and some people say May, maybe June or something like that, but it doesn't really matter. This legislation will be on the table, so they can point to it when the election does come and say, oh, you know what, we've got this in waiting. Just vote for us, and this is what they do, right? And we'll pull the trigger, quote, excuse me.
Well, it's a wedge issue, right?
It's a wedge issue.
Trying to wedge the center left.
It is. But like I said, they're going to have something tangible to point to and say, here's the legislation on the table, vote for us, and this will go through, right? So, and that's the whole point of this thing. There's no way they can pass this thing before June. It's just not going to happen, right? There's too many things that has to go to committee and all kinds of different things. It takes time. But the optics of it, looks like they're doing something. Once again, the Liberals are famous for this, right? They'll say something, they'll throw it out there, but, it doesn't materialize, right? It gets hung up, or they ignore it, or they just drag it out, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I predict it'll be one of the, the banner waving things at the election in June.
Absolutely right, Charles. Wedge issues like this are how they hope to distract from their own failings, and also divide people away from voting from their main competition, which is the Conservative Party of Canada, which is the only choice, frankly, for us to be able to get rid of the Liberals. And of course, we're watching very closely what happens with the Conservative Party's policy efforts. I know there are a lot of NFA members who are trying to be delegates at that particular convention to make sure they can vote on various issues of import. I'll see if my constituency association is going to back me on that. I hope they will, but we had a lot of people wanting to go, so we'll see what happens. And we have some legislative policy ideas that we've been hopeful to see passed at that convention as well. So ideally, if we get Aaron O'Toole in there as Prime Minister with the Conservative Party, we're hopeful that our strong connections there are going to bear fruit in terms of seeing real legislative reform in terms of the firearms act.
And Sheldon, he's already actually spoken to that during the CPC leadership convention. For those people who followed what we were doing, we had sent out that survey to all the leadership candidates, and you can just go to our website to check that out. But you'll see that Aaron O'Toole is, at that point in time, he was, pretty in line with, the things that we're hoping would happen in the future, with substantive gun control reform. So we'll see how that pans out. There's been some shifting of the party, towards the center, and we don't know what that means in terms of our relevance. I know a lot of our community are worried that we're going to be ignored again. Just like we were before. There's all kinds of promises, and then we're put on the back bencher after they took our money, and nothing happened after the fact, right? So I guess there is that worry, but I guess we'll flesh that out fairly quickly.
Well, I've been as active as many in trying to point that out, and I was fairly involved with getting the Reform Party going, and in my area, and I can assure you that there will be some change if we get these guys in, and I'm quite prepared to hold their feet to the fire, as I know the rest of the firearms community is. And we're going to have to make sure that they fulfill their promises. And that's what's going to have to happen. And I see Barry Snow's got a comment there on the feed. Time to decriminalize possession of a firearm. Absolutely. The peaceful possession of firearms should not be a criminal offense. Period. Full stop.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think another thing they're going to slide in here as well too is they were talking about straw purchases, and they've been signaling about this for a long time, ever since last January, I think. So I'm expecting something along those lines. I don't know what that's going to be. Like I said, I don't have the legislation, but of course they're also going to be focusing on the border, right? So what are they going to do there to stem, the tide of that contraband coming across the border, right? So, it's a border, and we sit on top of the greatest, small arms arsenal in the world. Good luck with that, right?
Well, Canada as well is a major exporter of firearms too. I mean, we have a very strong non-civilian oriented firearms industry in this country, and
yes,
it has for a long, long time. And I think what we're going to have to see is a real concerted effort of everybody getting together and understanding that this election is one that Trudeau can lose. It may not be one that the others win, but I think Trudeau can lose this election, and I think we can have influence over who replaces him. We certainly will not see parties like the PPC or any other very small parties make any difference in this election except to cost Conservative seats. So,
True.
And I hear people talk about Wexit. Well, we should only vote Alberta. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, guys, that isn't going to work. That's what's going to cause a big problem for keeping the Liberals in power and screwing the whole country. This is a national organization. We have to look after the whole country, and warts and all, that's what we're going to do. There's no compromise on that.
And speaking of Alberta, I guess they filled the position of the chief firearms officer.
Oh, I hadn't heard that, Jordan. Who
I don't know. I don't know who it was. I keep seeing it pop up on the Facebook there that they filled the position. I don't know if a lot of people understand, but this doesn't really change much for Alberta because they still have to run by the federal rules. So it's not going to help them save the recently prohibited firearms. The advantage is, the chief firearms officer could give out an ATC to somebody because that's in his discretion, but it doesn't mean that they can bring firearms back or allow any firearms that the federal government has already said it's a no-go.
Well,
so
in effect, what it's going to do is it's going to get people mad at the provincial government because the newly selected chief firearms officer is going to do things directed by Alberta as it's perceived, and thus Alberta is going to have to wear those decisions by that federal office with an Albertan perspective. And like you say, yeah, they could give out more permits, but are they going to? We'll see.
Well, it's like Ontario runs its own program too, and what has it done for us out here? Our wait times are 6 to 7 weeks for a pistol permit to come in, just to take my property from the store to my house. The transfers
ATC3.
And good luck trying to get an ATC.
And none of that bureaucracy has anything whatsoever about anything except providing a barrier to lawful ownership. That's what it's about. It has nothing whatsoever to do with stopping somebody from sticking up a bank, robbing a 7-Eleven, doing a bad thing to somebody else. None of that bureaucracy prevents any of that. It's nonsense. It's a waste of effort. It's a waste of our tax dollars. It isn't anything but that.
Another thing they may be introducing tomorrow as well, too, in terms of the safe storage provisions or measures, right, is, the definition of what constitutes a storage container or vault hasn't really been defined, right? So they may take measures to define that a little more vividly, right?
That's going to be a hard one to do.
It will.
There's case law about that that's out there now. And if they started to do that,
yes,
that's going to have a whole range of additional expenses to people, which is what they want, of course. They want to make owning firearms expensive, difficult, bureaucratic, problematic, and thus stop you from wanting to play the game.
But I think that's going to be part of
people underground.
But I think that's going to be part of their grandfathering option that they're also going to probably surprise us with tomorrow, right? So we have the ante saying we should be taking all these guns from these people and then throwing them into the Vasco foundry. They're seeing big blowback from this, not only from conservatives and everything else, but other people that are concerned about private property rights, etc. Right? So now they may be saying, okay, now you have to put your guns into some kind of a time vault or something like that. Why? So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Well, I talked to hunters who are NDP supporters who hunt, who have large caliber heavy rifles.
Yes.
And they thought, well, no one will ever go after this. Well, I've got this. One guy's got this. I think it was a Weatherby Vanguard in a very heavy African caliber, and he's going, "Is this prohibited now?" I think I read because he says, "I think this has more power," and well, yeah, I think it is, and he was furious.
So I want to circle back to what Charles was saying with the possible grandfathering. If we do get grandfathered, they're not going to make it like the past where you can keep your firearm. You get a special number on your license and it stays in the safe. There's rumors floating out that you're going to have to get this firearm deactivated, and to the new standards of deactivating a firearm, it can never be reactivated again. They are going to seal that sucker closed tight. That they're just basically going to butcher it.
Well,
right?
I remember the words of the immortal Charlton Heston when he said, "They can come and get it from my cold dead hands." And I'll tell you, these things are culturally relevant pieces of people's property, and people are not going to give this stuff up. And I there'll be some that will say, "Oh, this is too scary, and I've got this and this." But I tell you, if they're pushing for a real fight here, and it's not going to go well.
And we already have that model in place, right? This is not something new. Civil resistance has been going on, right? I mean, since 1995, there's a lot of people that opted not to get a license and held on to their firearms, and they have them even right now. So, Quebec's another example. Recently they brought in the long gun registry. 80% of the people did not comply. So, what always rings in my ear is what Bill told me in Ottawa. And I asked him, what about this, civil disobedience, a specter that may happen because of these bad laws? And goes, I am perfectly competent, or confident that, law-abiding firearms owners will surrender their firearms. I'm going, I just gave you examples of
good luck with that. You've got some video of Mr. Blair, don't you, Jordan?
Well, I've got a sound clip of him, and we can bring that up.
Yeah, let's beat him up.
Let's beat him up. All right.
Prohibiting weapons that were designed to kill people, assault weapons. And by the way, the only weapons that we've prohibited by characteristic are the grenade launcher and the .50 caliber rifle. which is really good for shooting somebody at about 2 kilometers through a brick wall.
Okay, hold on a second. So have we had an instance where somebody has been shot from 2 kilometers through a brick wall? Has that been recorded? Has there been a crime in Canada?
No, he's making up stuff again.
This
Right.
is him trying to bring the military application for these items into his narrative to market his agenda. That's all this
Right.
is.
And then let's see what he further on says, right?
And if you need to knock down the largest elephant ever around, but you don't need those in Canada. We've prohibited.
Okay, so then he goes on to elephants because we don't hunt elephants in Canada. That's fine, but what he fails to mention is there's a lot of competitions out there that you shoot long range, right? You shoot 1,500 2 kilometers out there, and he fails to see that. Like, there's the sporting activity right there. He fails to see that. Right? Say that, right?
Well, this is a common sporting activity. Bench rest shooting is an extremely popular discipline all around the world, and especially in North America. We have long distances, lots of space, perfectly safe areas to shoot just about anything we want.
Right. So then let's see what he says.
Those by characteristic, and all of the others we've named specifically the 1,500 variants. It's driving the gun lobby and the gun manufacturers crazy because they were always able to get around our rules. If we would define the characteristics of a weapon, they would quickly modify and adapt what they were selling to get around our rules. And now we've said, no, none of these weapons can be sold here. And I understand their frustration. They've lost that business opportunity, but we've made Canada safer as a result.
This has nothing to do with making Canada safer and everything about trying to destroy a culture, trying to destroy our heritage, and trying to steal our stuff. That's what this is.
Another part of that, Sheldon, I recently had a very interesting conversation with a high-level RCMP officer who knows Bill very well. And I should talk to him face-to-face in August. And one of the things that Bill told him that he remembers that reverberated in his mind was that, I did it, right? I got rid of the guns that were shooting our officers, right? And this officer said, "No, you didn't. Those are not the guns that are being used, right? And it doesn't really matter anyway." And he told him it's not the gun. It's the, these career criminals, which is something like 1% of the population whom we already know, and who are going back and forth, to see the judge being released on their own recognizance. That's where the real crime fighting measure should be focused, not on us, not on 50 cals, not on AR-15s or Thompson submachine gun 45s.
No, absolutely not. And this entire mentality that there are good guns and bad guns is part of the problem. The classification system has always been about an incremental slicing the pie so that there are fewer and fewer pieces left until there's just crumbs and then nothing. And then we won't even have a plate. And if anyone thinks that that's not what this is about, I just go back and I look at my Thompson 1927 A1 carbine there, which was part of a gun grab before. I've been to lots of these gun grabs where all of a sudden I have a safe full of safe queens, like many of us will have many more now if we're supposedly allowed to keep them. But I don't think people are going to give up their stuff. I think there's a real undercurrent of anger. It's a little dark cloud on the horizon, as Jack Webster once said, no bigger than a man's fist, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting darker, and it's getting angry. And I think if they want to mess with that, they're going to have a problem.
We have 2 fights on the horizon too. We got the Cassie Parker Premack case, and we have an election that could possibly be coming. So we're going to get two shots at it. Let's.
Yeah, that's right. And the case is critical, but the election is the most important thing. We've been working very hard to design and craft our approach and our arguments to make sure that Cassie and her lawyers are very well prepared. They've got a great legal team. They know what they're doing. It's one of the reasons we didn't participate in this recent time delay intervention, because there's no compelling need for the court to give up that thing when we're not even close to the time yet. So we're well prepared to take this fight seriously. And the donations that people have been sending into the National Firearms Association
Thank you.
to help support this case law and to help us to fight the next election are very much appreciated and very much needed. And if you got your letter in the mail from me recently, I'm not kidding. Please send out your donations to help support this fight, because this is essential to our success. It's essential that you get in there and fight this by opening up your wallet and helping us pay these lawyers to take this forward and to help us do our political activity during the election. We're the only firearms organization I could find that's reported to Elections Canada as having incurred third-party election expenses during the last federal election. That's us, nobody else.
That's a fact.
So if you want to support a firearms rights organization that's getting some work done, this is the one to do it with.
Sheldon, I want to circle back to your Thompson submachine gun again, because
it's a carbine. It's not a
sorry, it's a carbine, semi-automatic.
It is made semi-auto only.
I understand, but it is symbolic, right, of something that's actually contemporary, meaning the urban-rural divide, right, that the Liberals have conjured up again, and for using the same effect. So back in the 30s, we had gangsters supposedly shooting up the streets of urban centers with machine guns. So they prohibited them, right?
They are using movies is what it does,
yes,
Charles.
And they are using the same strategy again. And what I want to talk about here is this, the embracing of this urban-rural divide. This is a liberal invention. Okay, it's a concoction used to divide and conquer our community, so that the people supposedly in the rural countryside who have bolt action, whatever, and the other people who have sport shooting carbines, right, are now pitted against each other, and there's internal squabbling and no support, right? So we can't buy into that. One taken from somebody is taken from the other person just the same. And like you said, once they take my stuff, and they have, right, they will be coming for your bolt action, coyote rifles and everything else, right? We know the end game is no private firearms ownership in Canada.
Absolutely. That is really what this is about. And if anybody doubts that, just look back in our own history. This has been incremental. It's not a slippery slope. It's an incremental, carefully crafted process. And this is something that we cannot let stand. Now, there are a couple of questions I noticed people were asking. Warren Edmonds was asking, can you guys comment towards the RCMP overstepping their bounds in adding firearms to the prohibited section of the firearms reference tables not mentioned in the Order in Council because of reasons? Well, what do you think about that, Jordan? You're probably well poised as anybody to answer that one.
Why they didn't mention that? It all boils down to, I mean, like they're overreaching because they can get away with it right now. Who's holding them accountable? Who do they account to? They account to Bill Blair, right? And
exactly. I remember sitting in the Ministry of Public Safety's lobby, and these two RCMP officers are standing there with files and files of paper with lists of stuff they wanted to ban. And here's their opportunity, right? The old
and they're getting away with it too with the word variant. I mean, that's just open season right there. The model, there's a couple model shotguns that look like ARs. Perfect. Now we can get rid of those. Let's call them a variant of an AR.
And you're right about this whole thing that they want to slide in as much as possible when they can, right? Even my own MP, Pam Damoff, was saying the other day that she's glad that they're introducing new legislation now, because she senses that there's not enough runway left to execute the entire plan that they had in mind right before the election. So they try to put in what they can when they can, using any measure, underhanded or not, to make it happen, right? It gets in there because we all know that once something is instituted, it's doubly hard to get it out.
Yeah.
That's just right. Like, I mean, once we lose it, we have to fight, 3-4 times as hard to get it back. And that's why, like, there's no compromise. We can't not give anything up right now. We give them something now. It's going to take us years to get it back. The long gun registry, it took us a while to get it back. And Harper planned on was supposed to give us more. He was supposed to repeal a couple of the firearms acts. We never got it.
Supposed to repeal C-68 because that's
exactly
what he wanted to do. And I'm grateful for the ending of the so-called long gun registry, but there wasn't just a long gun registry. That was a classification issue. And yeah, that's nice they did that, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, especially some of that damage that the progressive Kim Campbell did to us with her 1992 legislation C-17. That magazine restrictions, all those guns that she banned and stole from people, prohibited without grandfathering, that stuff needs to be sorted out too.
Well, that was the 12-4 era, right? With the Uzis. She took out the Uzis, and there was a lot of people that challenged that in court, and they lost, and they had to give up their property.
So I just want to get back to the the MPs as well too, because this is the discussion that we have. This is kind of the narrative that I always bring to them, right? I saying, well, we're looking for substantive change, of course, right? They said, well, of course, we'll get rid of the OIC ban and C-71, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going, well, that's nice, but that just takes us back to a status quo. And they're just, yes, because that is not a good place to be. That's why we have, C-71 and, the OIC and other things coming down the pipe, because, the underlying legislation allows whatever government to use that legislation to usher in even more restrictions, right?
Yes, it does.
And like we have empirical proof now that shows that none of this stuff has any impact on or any benefit on public safety, right? Nothing on homicides. That doesn't affect pre-existing trends of domestic violence involving firearms or suicides, right? So, this whole thing, the premise of the gun control regime needs to be analyzed in terms of the facts now and redirected towards real crime control. People want action, not pontification from some political elites and an illusion of safety. People are still dying. Kids are being shot, right? And people have had enough of this, right? And these fantasy solutions aren't cutting it anymore.
No, you're absolutely right. I just noticed in the comment section that somebody said that Murray Smith's testimony there says the FRT is non-binding, and he's correct. It's not in the law. The only problem is who wants to challenge it. It's going to cost a lot of money by the time you go through the court systems, and that's why it's never been challenged. Nobody wants to step up to the plate, and if you lose, well, then there's the repercussions of losing. 10-year ban from owning firearms. Many different things the judge can give you for that, right? So that's another broken part of our firearms laws.
Well, the biggest problem we have, guys, is less than 5% of the firearms owning public in this country are involved in their local shooting club or a member of the NFA or a provincial wildlife association or any other group or organization. Less than 5%. That's a big problem. And I mean, when there are people out there who have not gone and supported a firearms rights campaign or taken out a membership in their local club or anything like that, that is not helpful. People need to stand up and be counted, because we have the numbers to defeat this. We really, really do. Yep. If we can get people out to vote. And I hear people say all the time, oh, they're all the same. They're all terrible. I'm not going to vote. I'm going to vote for this fourth level party or whatever. I'm sorry, guys. This is serious. The only way this works is we get rid of the Liberals and we put the loyal opposition in, the majority party there that's going to make a difference, and then hold them to the fire on it.
Sheldon, you're absolutely right. I mean, and we are, we've heard this before that we're at a tipping point, but this time it is real. Okay, so if Trudeau does get back in, the Liberals do get another mandate, and God forbid it's a majority, right? The gun community is going to be pared down to a small little minority of hobbyists who will have nothing to shoot, right? And trying to get that back, as we said before, is going to be, very, very difficult. So once again, we're appealing to, the people out there that are unassociated with the NFA, for instance, aren't voting, for their private property. I implore you, join the NFA. If you can't help us directly, send us money, get involved. Politics is not ignoring you. Obviously, you get involved as well too. That's the only thing that makes sense. Don't be a free rider.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
I think we'll leave it at there tonight. Everyone's going to be watching what's happening tomorrow. The three of us here are going to be watching it closely, and we'll be analyzing it, and maybe we'll come back at the end of this week or next week, and we'll have more for you.
Yeah, and we'll let you know how it goes when we talk to the leader of the opposition's advisor this week, and how our analysis is of the legislation. But I think the trial balloons have been floated, and we can see what's going on.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be back shortly.
All the best.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NFA Talk. Like and follow the NFA on social media and sign up to become a member.